Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. Let me tell you what this show is about. I'm just going to make sure I have my banners here. Okay, so let me tell you what Hot Topics is all about. If you are new to this, let me tell you. So, Hot Topics is the program where we like to have that real talk about real things. We like to talk about things in education, health, relationships, entrepreneurship, empowerment, all that soft and mushy stuff. But we like to have real deep dives into these topics. So that's what we're all about, and we're all under the scope of a step ahead tutoring services. So this is, of course, is intended to be an educational program. So let's get right into it. So I am looking forward to this topic today, and I'm looking forward to the guest. Let me tell you what the topic is for today. The topic is near death experience. I definitely want to hear about that. I don't know if any of you had any one of those, but my guest has, and I definitely want to hear about it. So, near death experience, that is the topic for today. And I am particularly excited because my guest is actually a returning guest. He was on a previous episode. I think I'm trying to remember what it is. I think he was the first resiliency episode. Yeah, that's right. So he's actually a returning guest. He actually did an episode called Resiliency Part 1. So I encourage you guys to look that up. I believe it's season 3. So look it up, check it out. Season 3, Resiliency Part 1. Maybe I'll tag it somewhere if you're watching this on YouTube. But check it out. That's the previous episode. But he is back today, and I can't wait to get him on the stage. So let me just tell you who that guest is. His name is Kellan Fluckiger, and let me just tell you about him, or let me remind you about him. So, coming through decades of depression, addictions, life-threatening illness, and a near-death experience, hint, hint, Kellan has become the ultimate catalyst to help motivated people melt barriers, move mountains, and mobilize superpowers to achieve their true desires. Fabulous. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring him to the stage. Hi, Kellan. How are you doing today?
I'm fabulous, and it's really nice to see you again. I'm really grateful for the work you do and the attention you bring to good stuff, and I was grateful to get the chance to come back.
Thank you for coming back. So I know I said I was going to have you back, and and you're here, and we made it happen. So today we're going to talk about your near-death experience. I definitely want to hear about that. I'm sure our audience wants to as well. So please just go ahead, and the floor is yours.
You know, sometimes people get sick, and they get very, very sick and come close to dying, or have a car accident, and those kinds of things, and they call those near-death experiences. So there's different definitions. In my case, my heart actually stopped. I died in the intensive care unit of the University of Alberta Hospital here in Edmonton. The illness that led up to it, that story is kind of interesting. My wife and I went on a cruise, and we hadn't ever been on a cruise before, and it wasn't very long, 10 days. We had a lot of fun, but at the end, I got sick, and when we got home, I decided, well, terrible flu, so I just stayed in bed and didn't do anything. We got home on a Tuesday, and I got sick on Monday. So the reason I'm saying this is because that was day 2, and that'll be important in a minute. Day 3 and 4, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I stayed home, and it just got worse and worse. And finally, Friday on day 5, I thought, okay, I need to go to the clinic here. And in Canada, they have walk-in clinics that you do first, and we had one near our house that we usually went to, so that if we had a doctor, family doctor, that would have been her. And so I went to see her, and as I got there, this is pre-COVID, this is in June of 2018, so 4 years ago. And they had had a sign on the wall forever that said, if you're coughing, please let the nurse know, probably so they could stuff you in one of the private rooms quickly so you wouldn't cough all over other people in the waiting room, I guess. But anyway, I asked my wife, who was driving me, to go in and tell the nurse that I did. And the nurse came out to see me, and she took one look at me and said, "You can't come in here. We can't do anything for you anyway. Go right now to the ER." And so the hospital was probably about 10 or 15 minutes from that clinic. So, we were quite shaken up, and I apparently I looked that bad. So we jumped in the car and drove down there. And, in a typical emergency room, if you go into the emerge, you might take, they triage and then call you in. It might take an hour. It might take two. If it's really busy, 2 or 3 hours before you finally get in to see somebody. We got in there, and in 10 minutes, I was in a private room. Now, up till then, I didn't even know they had private rooms in emergency rooms. The only thing I'd ever seen was those curtains. You lay on a stretcher, and they have those kind of privacy curtains, but no room. No, this was a room with a door in 10 minutes. And I thought, this is not good. And so they came in like they always do, but they came in immediately. Like I didn't lay there for a long time. People were all over me, asking me where I'd been, what had happened. I told the story that I just told you about being on the cruise and getting sick and how many days it had been. And they wanted to know where I'd been and what I'd done. And because they were trying to figure out what was causing this, because to them it was obvious it was horrific. I was just beginning to realize that. So in just a little while, the doctor was in there, asked me all the same questions. And, they started doing tests and x-rays and send you over here in the hospital and over there and wheeling you around. And pretty quickly they said, well, there's no question you're going to get admitted to the hospital. We're just trying to figure out what's wrong with you. So pretty quickly now, but time's going by. So 2 hours, 3 hours with all this process. And it got to be towards evening, and because this all started around noon, and they said, well, at a minimum, you have some kind of terrifyingly bad pneumonia in both lungs, but there's something, we don't know what else, there's something wrong. So they were drawing blood and just all kinds of stuff to see what was going on. And so finally, and after they said they were going to admit me, I sent Joy, my wife's name is Joy, I sent her home because we have dogs and cats, and, they're going to admit me. So I'm going to stay and just go and come back in the morning, and we'll see where we are. As the night wore on, they kept coming back, every hour or something to tell me more stuff, and it got worse and worse. And pretty soon they did take me to a room upstairs out of the emergency private room, and they put me in another private room. And then they came in there and said, yeah, we're going to move you to intensive care. And I thought, okay, this is not good. And then in a little while they came back and said, well, we really don't know what's wrong besides this pneumonia, but it's worst we've ever seen. So on top of that, then they asked me the question that you never want to hear. The doctor walked in, looked right in my eyes, and said, do we have permission to intubate you and do anything we need to do to preserve your life? And I said, what? And then it sunk in. I thought, holy crap. Okay, yes, right? And then they left, and when they left, I went into meditation. Now, I've been a meditation practitioner for decades, started in my teens, and the first 5 books of the 18 that I have written was a 5-volume series on meditation. So I'm very, very experienced. And so I went into meditation, deep meditation. And I realized as I went deep into meditation that I could feel my body and my spirit separating. And it felt like unzipping without the noise of a zipper, but I could feel that happening. And I thought, okay, I I think I'm dying. So I finished the meditation with that realization and picked up my phone to send Joy a message, because by now it was 11 or so at night, and I could realize that I could barely operate my phone. So my body was shutting down and I was not doing well, and so I managed to get a text out, and the text had 3 lines. Because they had also told me, after they told me they're going to take me to ICU, they came back another time before the fatal question, and they said, we're going to put you in biological isolation. I don't know if you know what that is, but in biological isolation, it's like a hazmat scene in a biohazard lab. It has double doors, airlock kind of things, negative pressure, so nothing can get out. So they were, not only was I dying, and they knew that, but they were scared that what I had was some, monster thing from outer space, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so the text to Joy said, ICU. The second line said isolation/intubation. And the third line said, I may be dying. My wife didn't see that because she had gone to sleep. Shortly after I sent that text, I collapsed. Code, blue, green, orange, black, whatever it is. I think it's code blue. But anyway, I flatlined and my heart stopped. About 2:30, and I lost consciousness, and I didn't regain consciousness for 17 days. So I was in a coma for 17 days, but to start with, my heart had stopped. They called, Joy got a call at 2:30 in the morning. Now, I didn't know this at the time. This is all later. And she got asked the question you never want to get. So the nurse said to her, are you coming? And she said, what? And then she saw my text. So you can imagine the conversation there. But anyway, that's what started it, is my heart stopped in the intensive care unit in the Edmonton University of Alberta Medical Center here. The near death, and so effectively I died. I came to spiritually. I was laying down on the stretcher. I sat up, energetically, spiritually, however you want to call it, and I looked around. And the room had changed. It wasn't full of doctors and people. It was sort of gray, a very, very soft photo card gray. And I looked around, and it was kind of hard to tell how big the room was, but it was big. And I looked over my left shoulder, and I could see a doorway. Like I couldn't see door, but a doorway. And I could see on the other side of that door, it was white. My side was gray. Now, there wasn't light streaming through. It was just white on that side and gray on my side. And I had this yearning, this desire to be at the door. So suddenly I was at the door, and I was leaning on the door jamb on my right shoulder, on the gray side. And I looked across the door, and on the other side, leaning on that door jamb, was another person who looked right at me and asked, do you want to come home? Now, in a millionth of a second, I knew who I was talking to. I knew what the door was. This was God asking me if I wanted to come home. So I knew the door was the threshold between life and eternity. And what was interesting is there was no expectation about the question, like about how I should answer it or anything else. It was just there in the most gentle, open space. I knew without question it needed an answer. Like there was not going to be, I don't know. It needed an answer, but there was no pressure at all about the answer. So we talked for a while about what I'd been doing. My previous 10 years, 11 years actually, was spent building the coaching practice that I have now. I'd had a 30-year career in another industry, and after 30 years, I had some I'd lived with a lot of depression, and you'll notice some of the books that I wrote one was called Tightrope of Depression, and it was my own life and struggles. But in 2007, I'd had a huge awakening, left that career and started building what I do now, which is a coaching practice to help people discover their divine gifts and to live into their opportunity and potential. But anyway, so this was 11 years I'd been building that. And after we talked for a while, I finally realized and said, I'm not done yet. And he said, okay. And that was the end of the first conversation. Now, the next day, and I'm quite sure that's when they were able to restart my heart. The next day, I was back at the door, and the topic of the previous conversation didn't come up. That was decided. The topic of the second conversation, and some people have asked me, how do you know it was the next day? I don't know. You just know. Okay, it was the next day, and I'm there again. Same thing, leaning on the door, talking to the same person. And that topic that day was, okay, so you've decided to stay. What are you going to do? Okay, for what? So then we talked about the work that I had done and the spiritual side of it, helping people get rid of the doubts and fears and realize who they really are as divine beings and that sort of thing. And after we talked for a while, and I was pretty excited, I was talking about the things that I had already done and wanted still to do and everything. And then I had an experience. The best way I can describe it is there was an old movie, probably 30 years ago, maybe 35, with Jodie Foster in it called Contact. And you may or may not have seen it. It's worth a watch if you haven't seen it. But it's about aliens who beam information to Earth, and then we decipher it and we build this spaceship, and everybody finally figures out this is how we're supposed to make first contact with these alien species. And somewhere after they build this thing, they drop a big sphere, and Jodie Foster's a star. She's in it through this energy field, and she disappears for 12 seconds. And in that 12 seconds, all the recording devices are all blanked out, but she goes on a journey through wild cosmos, through eternities of universe, and sees things and has conversations and stuff. What happened felt like that. I felt like I was being fed with a fire hose of vision, sight, sounds, information, and somehow I was protected, or I would have been incinerated by the level of energy. But anyway, that went on for some period of time. It felt long, but I don't have a way of knowing how many seconds or minutes or whatever it was. When I came back and was there still at the door, 4 things. I mean, there was lots of stuff that I saw and happened, but 4 really important things in terms of my ongoing work as a coach became really clear. And the first one was, each one of us is an intentional, lovingly created divine being. Not maybe, not sort of, we are. And that was clear. The second piece that was clear was we were really, on purpose, carefully given gifts as we came to this place to have this particular experience. The third thing was we really do have a mission and purpose that we not only agreed to, but we were really excited about. And it's related to the gifts that we have. And the fourth thing is that all the help we need is available from both sides of that door. Those are not new pieces of information. You've thought, felt, or heard or known those things intuitively in your heart before. What happened for me was I now knew them in a way that was not only impossible to doubt, but just in an incredible way as a result of that experience. And so I said, well, since that's true, those 4 things, why do we settle for crumbs? And he looked at me and he said, I don't know if in the economy of heaven brevity is a virtue, but the answer was 4 words: because you don't believe. And I felt like, I didn't facepalm, but kind of like that. Of course, because we don't believe. So then I said, okay, so what can I do to help with that? Oh, glad you asked. So then another entire framework about how to identify, work on, and change those deep-seated beliefs that we have that are at the core of our self-doubt: not good enough, can't do this, won't work, all that stuff. And that was also quite long. So that second conversation felt really long and full and rich. That conversation ended, and the third day I was back, and I came back to the door, and this time I was just buzzing. I felt like, somebody sitting on one of those balls in a desk, one of those great big balls that are chairs, sort of, that if you're not careful, you fall over on. I was just sort of bouncing, excited. And the third day, the conversation was only one question again. He looked at me and he said, "Are you sure?" And I felt like I was hyperventilating. I thought, well, what do you mean, am I sure? Like, have I missed something? Am I stupid? Am I biting off more than I could chew? All these thoughts were racing through my head. And so we talked about that question from every possible way that I could think of. And eventually, again, I said, because there was no such thing as not answering the question. I said, yeah, I'm sure. Okay. And nothing was said, but there was, but the conversation ended with the finality that I knew we were done. And so that was the end of the third conversation. And 14 days later, I came out of the coma with an absolute crystal clear recollection of all of it. And that event has supercharged everything about my life and is the basis for this book that I wrote about that, called Meeting God at the Door: Conversations, Choices, and Commitments of a Near-Death Experience. And that framework of belief, about how to change beliefs, was so big that I didn't include it in that book. I wrote a second book called The Book of Context, which is the contents of that second conversation, specifically about how we can change our beliefs, where they come from. So after 14 days, I came out of a coma, and eventually I got out of intensive care, and eventually I was released from the hospital. When I came out of the coma, I had lost 35 pounds. I was so weak I couldn't walk. I had to learn to walk again. When I first tried to get out of bed, I had to move each leg with my hands. And when I first tried to stand up, I had to clutch a great big weighted, looked like a tackling dummy on wheels and all that. So it had completely flatlined my physical body. I, couldn't do anything to start with. And since that time, it's been now 4 years, I have gotten back to mostly health. I did ask a question because my lungs were so badly damaged. I said, will I ever get my lungs back? And the advice I got was, 2 years to never. And so it's been 4 years now, and I still certainly don't have the aerobic capacity I used to have. But I'm probably 80% back, and my body and physical strength and capability has returned. And I am fully and furiously on the mission this year of helping 50 million people to discover, to develop, and to serve with their divine gifts. And that's why I'm grateful to Gabrielle for this opportunity to share this experience with you. So that is what happened in that time frame. The details, of course, are in the book, but that's what happened.
I thank you. Thank you so much for that. I don't know what to ask you. I think you encompassed everything. So I guess what comes to mind is I would imagine that God doesn't do that for everybody. So I'm wondering, do you think that God chose you um, during that experience?
I don't believe for 1 millisecond that I'm any more important, privileged, or better than anybody else who breathes air. What I know is that every single one of us has gifts and opportunity to make a huge and important difference. The fact that that happened to me, maybe, I don't have an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have those kinds of experiences and then come back and try to prophesy and tell. I don't, none of that. I'm on a mission. My mission is to help every person that breathes air to realize who they really are as divine beings and the truth of this stuff we hear online about, well, you have gifts and all that stuff, that's true, and that our greatest fulfillment is loving and serving those around us using those gifts. And yes, you can turn them into a business, and yes, you can make money, and yes, you can create, but you can live in perpetual joy. You don't have to struggle and think, okay, I'll be happy when down the road. So no, I don't think I'm any more important than anybody else. And, we'll have to go ask them together why that happened to me and not somebody else. I don't know. What I do know is that before 2007, the first 52 years of my life, I lived in terrifying depression. I'd had addictions. I was married and divorced 3 times. I was in and out of rehab. I'd attempted suicide twice. And in 2007, I didn't die, but I had another sort of divine intervention. I didn't see anybody, but some things happened to really give me the opportunity to wake up. And after 30 years, I walked away from a career and all kinds of stuff and started over. And to me, because I accepted that invitation to change my life and just walk off into the sunset, start over, 11 years later, in 2018, when this happened that I just described, I counted it as a blessing. I counted it as validation. I counted it as I wept for joy when I woke up. Not because I could walk and but because I had the opportunity to do more. I had been working on everything for 11 years as hard as I could. And this was like a blessing beyond measure. And yeah, it came at great cost and terrifying experience and dying and having to rebuild my body from scratch. But I view the whole thing as a glorious blessing, validation, affirmation, and the fact that in the last 4 years I've been able to get my body mostly back and my lungs about 80%. I'm going to live another 1,000,000 years and do this work. Not because I'm important, but because the work's important.
And remind us again, what is that work? What is your mission?
My work is to help you listening here right now to understand and accept the fact that you truly are a divine being. There's no accidents about that. I don't care what you've been through or what struggles you have now or who did what to you or what you've done wrong. You have the opportunity to have a big impact in the world if you want to discover and then develop and serve with your divine gifts. One of the things that I do to reach my 50 million for this year is I have a podcast like Gabrielle does, and it's called Your Ultimate Life. And it's about how to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy, serving with your divine gift. So my mission is to help each person learn to believe in themselves, learn to realize how important and valuable they are, how much they matter, and how big of an impact they can have, and that all the help that you need is available from both sides of that door. It might be hard to find. You might have a habit of ignoring it. You might have a story that you're not important or no good. You might have all that stuff going for you. I sure did. I hated myself. That's how come I'd been in and out of rehab and wrecked multiple relationships. So the person you hear and see now, if you'd met me in 2007, You would have seen a self-absorbed, addicted person who had more money than brains, who was divorced again for the third time, and who had 2 weeks before that other invitation attempted to kill himself. That's who I was then. Today, I'm on a mission, and the mission is to love you, whoever you are, because you deserve it, because you're important, and to help you then do something with that knowledge, to lift and bless you, not only yourself, but everyone around you. And this year, my mission is to help 50 million people discover, develop, and serve with their divine gifts.
Awesome, awesome. So now I'm wondering, how do you know that it was actually God that reached out to you? Like, how do you know it wasn't a hallucination or a delusion? How do you know it was actually God?
Well, so people have asked that before. He didn't have a name badge on it that said, "Hi, my name is God." That wasn't there. There are things that you know, and you know them in a way that cannot be erased or changed. As an addict for other years, I know plenty about hallucinations. I know all kinds of stuff about the energy and the spirit that are around hallucinations. I could remember every detail with crystal clarity. The conversation was in a gigantic basket of love. Like as coaches, we use the word holding space, like you hold space for somebody to talk and all that. I can tell you there has never been any space in any universe held like the space that was in that conversation. Do you want to come home? There was mighty just love and space. And so you just know, like I can't draw a mathematical equation or list a bunch of things with hosts of choirs of angels singing behind. It is what it is. I know what it is, and nothing ever in any universe could change that, but I can't prove it. What I do know is when I came out of the coma, because I was still pumped full of drugs, painkillers, and I was on every antibiotic known to man to get what I ended up having was a necrotizing MRSA superbug in both lungs and in my bloodstream. And what the infectious disease specialist told me when I came out of the coma, he said, the 10-day kill rate, and that's why the days mattered. I got to the hospital on day 5. He said, the 10-day kill rate for what you have is 100%. We talk about COVID with a 2 to 3% mortality rate. He looked me right in the eyes and said, the 10-day kill rate of what you had was 100%. So the fact that I died is like, duh, it kills people. Okay, so this was not a mystery. They didn't even figure out what I had until the end of day 8. So, of course, I died. What I know is when I came out of the coma, but was still on all these antibiotics and painkillers and everything else, then I had some hallucinations because of the medication that I was on. And what I can tell you is those hallucinations were terrifying. They were scary. They were frightful. They were not clear. They were not connected. I had conversations with people in the room that weren't there. I had tubes coming from the ceiling spying on me. There was conspiracies going on. It was horrifying. Wall clocks changed shape. But they was all in a basket of black and fear and terror, and I couldn't get rid of the feeling that I was being watched, and it was awful. When I contrast that with the love and the peace and the certainty and the clarity surrounding this, they don't even deserve to be mentioned in the same sentence.
Mm. So did you tell your wife what happened?
Absolutely, I told her. At first, because I was on so many drugs and so much stuff, it all came out in sort of jumbly stuff. I couldn't describe it very well because I was still being medicated heavily. But I started talking about it the minute I came out of the coma. The first words out of my mouth, All I'd been doing is repeating the framework in the book of context about how to change beliefs, and that's all I'd been doing in my unconscious state in the coma, was repeating all that. So that's all I talked about, was what I eventually would write in the books and what had happened. I talked about it. And the funny part was, I told the nurses, I told the doctors, and everybody, and I assumed that they would think I was crazy. So I just assumed they're going to think I'm crazy, and I'm not. When I left the emergency room, they all said goodbye, and I joked and said, not emerged, but the ICU. When I left intensive care to go up to the regular part of the hospital, they said, well, goodbye. And I looked at them and said, well, I hope I never see you again. And, that sort of thing, right? And then the head guy of the infectious disease unit, all joking aside, he looked at me and he said, when you get out of here, I need you to come back and tell me what you saw. So something about what I said, even in my craziness, had a gravity and a power that made him say, I need to know.
It's sort of like he wanted the information.
He wanted to know. There was no question that he took it seriously, and he said, I need to know what you saw.
So you thought someone would think you're crazy, like you're joking, but he actually took you seriously.
I had thought people would not joking. I assumed people would think I was hallucinating and that I had imagined it all and all the stuff that people can think if they want to. And no amount of any of that will change what happened and what I know. But I love them anyway, and I understand why they think that. I might have thought that if I'd heard this story. But I know, and, what someone does with that is like what someone does with anything they hear.
So now you have this mission, this purpose. Have you been fulfilling that mission?
I have been. That's all I do, Gabrielle. I know it sounds interesting, or funny or weird. People ask me that. I use Lunch Club. Lunch Club is an artificial intelligence platform that you get to meet people all over the world. Now you have 2 or 3 conversations a week, and I have been for 2.5 years. That I haven't. All these people, and we don't often talk about this, but people ask, and they say, what do you do? And I'm a coach, and I help people. I help people discover their gifts and serve and all that stuff. I quote the thing from the podcast. I live the ultimate life by a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy by serving with your divine gift. And so they say, well, how do you do that? And how are you reaching out? And what do you do for when you're not working? What do you do for vacation? What do you do for fun? And the first time somebody asked me that, I thought, I don't do anything. I do this. This is fun. So whether I'm writing a book, whether I'm doing my own podcast, appearing on ones like yours, creating those television programs we talked about, or in the recording studio doing music. I've written an album of music with several of the books. So I've got dozens of songs that are done that tell stories from Tightrope and some other. I'm only doing one thing. First breath to last breath. Every day, all day long. And that's trying to help every person that I meet, trying to love. I have a business. I coach. You know what my business plan is? It's on the wall. It says, I never look for clients. I look for people to love, opportunities to serve, and problems to solve. And somewhere in those conversations, I have plenty of clients. People they want that help, but it comes just because I'm doing what I said. I don't need anybody's permission to love them. I can love you even if you don't want me to. I may not be able to help you unless you tell me something about what you need, but I start with just loving every person that I see because I know who you are.
So I remember from our last interview, we talked about your mom. Do you think you would apply your mission for your mom, for your family? Because you're reaching out to other people, but what about your own backyard? What about your own people?
110%. So I have long since forgiven. I carry no anger, bitterness, or judgment toward her or anyone else. I've been to family reunions. Some of my siblings are still angry, and some of my kids. I have 10 kids. Some of my kids, because of all the divorces and addictions, don't talk to me. But I am open. I send them things on every birthday, and I get sometimes grumpy notes back, and I don't care. The day will come, and I know that like I breathe. And there's nothing that they can do. It is not within their power to cause me not to love them and to be open. Because that's under my control.
Mm. So how long are you going to be doing this for?
Well, when I turn 66, my birthday's in December, so I'll be 67 this December, so in a couple months. So 10 months ago when I turned 66, I thought, you know what? I'm at the top of the hill. That means I've got 66 years to go. So I'm going to live till I'm 132, and I will be still on this mission with my last breath.
Oh, you sound sure of that. How are you so sure of that?
You know what? I'm not saying that was a revelation from the heavens that says I'm going to live till I'm 132. So I don't know about that, but I know I'm getting healthier, and I know things are better now than they have been over the last 4 years. I know compared to 15 years ago, I'm way healthier. All those things have changed, the addictions and everything. And so I'm getting better. I'm getting younger in that context. I'm not pretending I've got some magic elixir, but I know what I feel like. I have energy all day, every day. And so I do know that until my last breath, I have no interest in doing anything else. My wife is my business partner. She runs our back end stuff. We do all kinds of stuff. We just took another rescue kitty in. So we have a few animals that we rescue. We have a Ukrainian family with us, the mom and daughter, because of the war in Ukraine. We're taking care of my wife's 91-year-old mother. She lives with us. And it's everybody everywhere, not just some people out there somewhere. Active in the church and community, and I'm the organist for our congregation, and I am active in the young men's program, and that's just who I am because I choose to be that.
So not only have you turned your life around, but you're turning around the lives of people around you.
50 million this year.
How does that feel? I think before you felt like you didn't have a purpose, and I'm just reflecting from our previous interview that you felt like you didn't have a purpose, and now you do. So how does all that feel?
Overwhelming gratitude. I live in just a constant state of awe and wonder that I have the opportunity, that I get to meet people like you that are doing good, more people just everywhere and every person. And so I just live in a constant state of gratitude. Like, it doesn't even matter what happens. Everything doesn't go right in my life. Stuff breaks and bad stuff happens. And, I didn't even tell you this part. There's another little story. Do we have time for another story?
Sure.
Okay, well, I got out of the hospital in July. I was in the hospital for a month. And by October, I could walk. And so I went spoke at 4 different events in October. And then at the end of November, I started having back pain. And I didn't know what it was. And it got worse and worse. And on December the 5th, 5 months after I got out of the hospital with the experience I just said, I woke up on the morning of December 5th, paralyzed from the waist down. I got out of bed and fell on my face. I got on my hands and knees and fell on my face because nothing was working. So we called the ambulance, and I went to the hospital in an ambulance. First time in my life. The other time, Joy drove me. So as I got in the hospital to go, and I was in staggering pain. This was terrifying pain, and I'm paralyzed from the waist down. I'm in the hospital, or not in the hospital, in the ambulance. And I was hurting really, really badly. And I had this picture in my mind, kind of a vision sort of thing. And it was like a sporting event, like you see on TV where they have like the World Series of Poker, you know, and the room is kind of black and purpley with those lights, and there's all these tables, right? And it was first person. It was like through my own eyes, and I'm sitting at the table, one of the poker tables, and there's people around me. And all of a sudden I realized that right across from me was someone with the Grim Reaper, like in full regalia, hood and the whole 9 yards. And I thought, holy crap. And then, you know, it was time to bet, and everybody else sort of faded away, and Reaper reached down there and did this motion with his chips, like moving all in. And I was scared to death. You know, I'm in pain, it's like all in, right? And so I thought to myself, okay, when your opponent, but I didn't say your opponent, I said the adversary, because that's what it was. When the adversary raises the stakes, what are your options? I thought, well, you either fold or you call. Then all alone in the back of the ambulance, in that pain, I moved the only thing which I could was my arm, and I raised it up and slammed it down on the stretcher as hard as I could and screamed at the top of my lungs, then I call. And then everything faded away. So the idea that somehow, and I went to the hospital, and what had happened is that superbug that had killed me 5 months before, even though they'd given me all those antibiotics, was not completely out of my body. It had relocated in the top of my spine and had calcified. And so from C2 to T1 vertebrae, which is up in the base of the neck, to T1, about 4 inches long, I had an abscess that had hardened, and it was putting pressure on the spine, which is why I was paralyzed. So they got me in the ER, and they took me and did an MRI and X-ray and everything else. And so I went from the ER to the operating rooms. I never even got admitted till after the surgery. They did emergency surgery and called in some specialist. And of course, my luck, and there's no such thing as luck, was one of the best in Canada. It happened to be right at another hospital on call. He took one look at the MRI and said, take him to the OR right now. We're operating right now. So they did that, and then I went home. I was in the hospital 10 days. On the 14th, I got out, and I had to carry a pump with me because they put in a PICC line, because the antibiotics had to drip right into your heart. So they stick it in a vein right under your arm, and it goes across your chest, and the antibiotics drip right into your heart. And the reason they do that is because they're so intense that if they put them in veins in your arm, they would collapse all the veins. So they have to drip them in where there's the most blood flow, which of course is in your heart. So I had to do that for 6 weeks. And so you ask me how I know. Well, that kind of opposition is there because of what I'm doing. And so I went back on the 27th of December to have the stitches out, because I had great big stitches in that 4-inch. I looked like a mini stegosaurus, right? And the doctor that operated on me was there, and he talked to me, and he said, you need to know that I can count on less than one hand the number of people that have come into the hospital like you did and then walked out under their own power. And he just couldn't believe it. So that's how I know what I'm doing, and that's why I'm doing this till I draw my last breath. And I say that because sometimes someone might think, oh, well, you know, it's all easy, right? You know what you're doing, and it's all... No, not exactly. Not exactly. So that spawned another book, and that book is Walking Without Fear, for sort of obvious reasons. So that's that story.
Fabulous, fabulous story. Thank you so much. So before we wrap up, I want to just get these comments here that have shown up. This one, I'm the only one watching this, and it's so kind of hard to believe. All right, I don't know. Maybe this message is for you, Paul. All right. Really just my brother and myself watching this live feed. I don't know. Maybe this message is for you. Michael Overly, our mutual friend. Kellan Fluckiger is a rock star. So you're a rock star, Kellan.
Well, thank you. I don't play guitar. I do play keyboards really well, but I don't play guitar.
Interesting from Michael. And Michael asked the question, have you tried to be on Coast to Coast AM? Right?
No. If you have a way that I should do that or something, I'm interested. I don't know what that is, and I have not tried to do that. But thank you for the suggestion.
All right. So, Michael, if you could reach out to Kellan, we both know, we don't know what that is, but thank you for the suggestion. All right. So let's wrap things up here. So do you have any, he said, PM me, I will send info. All right. All right. There you go. So you have a potential contact, Kellan.
Yay, and thank you. One more on the 50 million. Love it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so let's wind things down now. So do you have any final words of advice, any parting words that you would like to leave our audience?
Yeah, I do. And that is this. I'm not in any way trying to prove or convince anyone of anything about my experiences. What I want to share with you is whether you decide that I'm a nutcase or not, that's fine. What I want you to know is that you are a divine being. You have gifts and talents, and each of us is happiest when we use those gifts and talents to serve and to bless and to love those around us. That's the message. How I learned that is how I learned that. And we all each are going to have our opportunities to learn that in the walk of our own lives. So I don't want this to be about me at all. It's really about you and your own relationship to your Creator, the gifts that you have, and the mission and purpose that you have for your life. So go forward and love yourself furiously and have a heart to serve. That would be the message.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Kellan, for that. And thank you for all the wonderful words that you've shared with us today. All right, so let's jump to your promo. All right, you guys. So Kellan Fluckiger is all over the place, you guys. You could go to his website to learn about his coaching services. It is just his name, www.kellanfluckiger.com. You could also find him on Facebook. He has a Facebook page, Coach Kellan Fluckiger. He's on Instagram, Kellan.Fluckiger. He's on Twitter, Kellan Fluckiger. YouTube channel, Kellan Fluckiger. LinkedIn, Kellan Fluckiger. He's all over the place. It is just his name. So just go to all those platforms and just type in his name. You'll find it. But I provided that information to you scrolling below at the bottom of your screen for my video people. And for my audio people, I did not forget about you. That information will be in the description, but all of this information is at your fingertips, however you are taking in this episode. So I encourage you to reach out to Kellan if you want to take advantage of those coaching services. Is there anything else you want to share about your business, Kellan?
Yeah, my business. I have three things that I say. People say, "What are you?" I'm a lover of people, healer of souls, and multiplier of prosperity. That's what I love to do. Thank you for letting me be. Thank you for the honor of letting me speak to your audience and of seeing your beautiful face once again.
Oh, thank you. All right. So do you provide one-on-one services or how does it
There's
work?
all kinds of things, sure, and there's no obligation. If anybody wants to chat, sure, let's just talk and see what happens.
All right. So there you go. It's an open invitation. So if you want to take advantage of that open invitation, reach out to him. His info is scrolling below at the bottom of your screen if you are watching this on video. And for my audio people, again, he's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. It is just his name, Kellan Fluckiger. And you can also visit him online, www.kellanfluckiger.com. That's Kellan with 2 L's. So I encourage you to look to follow him on all of his social media and check out his website. And I want to
That's the
mention
fun part about having a weird name. You can't hide.
you can't hide. and your name is everywhere, so it's there's always somewhere you could find it. All right, I want to make sure that we get this in. You have a podcast. It is called Your Ultimate Life by Kellan Fluckiger. I put the web link there, but the podcast is available on your favorite podcast station. So wherever there are podcasts, he is there. And it is called Your Ultimate Life by Kellan Fluckiger. Tell us about your podcast.
It's funny. It started at the beginning of the pandemic, right after the first lockdowns in March of 2020. People were just like, lockdown. And some guy who was in a mastermind with me like 3 or 4 years before that, he wasn't a client. He knew that I spoke and stuff. And he called my wife. She's also my business partner, but she called him and said, does Kellan have a podcast? Because he was looking for, encouragement or something during the lockdown. And we didn't. But my wife said, yes. Then she came downstairs and said, we have a podcast. So I started it in March of 2020 or April. We're now at episode 720 something. And
Wow.
The whole purpose of it is to offer encouragement. Podcasts are free. It is how to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy. It's a labor of love because you don't sell podcasts. And I do it with love and with my intention to reach those people.
Wait, so did I say your name wrong? The name of the podcast?
No, Your Ultimate Life.
Okay.
Your Ultimate Life. No, you said it exactly right. Your Ultimate Life.
All right, there you have it. So listen to his podcast, download those episodes. It is available wherever there are podcasts. Check it out on your favorite podcast station. It is there. Check him out. And lastly, as he so eloquently displayed, he has a bunch of books and they're all on Amazon. So how many books have you written?
18.
18 books, and they're all on Amazon?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there you go. As he has displayed his beautiful display of books, they are all on Amazon. So if you want to purchase those books that he held up to the screen, as well as the other parts of his, what's the word? Is it bibliography? I'm trying to remember what the word is.
I don't know.
your whole collection. We'll just say collection.
Yeah, there you go.
If you guys want to purchase any books from his collection, they are on Amazon. So I encourage you to go to Amazon and look up his books. I had a link, but that link, of course, will be provided in the description. But I'm sure you could just type his name, Kellan Fluckiger, and boom, it'll just pop up on Amazon. So that beautiful display of books that he just showed us during the broadcast, as well as all his other books, it is all on Amazon. So if you want to purchase his books, head on over to Amazon right now and purchase them. Okay, Kellan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to reach some more people in my quest.
Yes, and you got yourself a potential contact. So what am I trying to say? Let's get it together. Let's get the connection going.
I will.
All right, Kellan, thank you so much. I'm going to place you backstage. And you guys, it is now just you and me. So thank you so much for watching or listening to this broadcast. So, as a reminder, this podcast is a production of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So, if you are looking for a tutor, whether for your child or even for yourself, as we do work with adults, please reach out to us. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You could also email us success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You could also call us. I didn't put up the phone number, but the phone number, if you are in the US or Canada, is 347-762-2838. So definitely give us a call. I will encourage you to either email or text as opposed to making a call because I'm more responsive that way. But please reach out to us if you are looking for a tutor, if you're looking for academic assistance, if your child is struggling, or any kind of anything, reach out to us. Let us set you up with one of our tutors. I also encourage you to follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. What are the other ones? Twitter, Eventbrite, and WhatsApp. So find us on social media. It is just our name, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. Twitter is actually slightly different. It is just Tutor ASATS. But either way, just pop in our name and you will find us on social media. So I encourage you to follow us on all of our social media accounts and stay in touch with us. What else? What else? What else? What else? Yes, I would also love to hear your feedback about this episode. So please let me know what you thought about this episode. Drop a comment in the comment section if you are watching this on video. If you are listening to this on audio, please drop a rating. Let us know what you thought about this episode. I definitely will appreciate your feedback. And I also encourage you guys to share this episode with someone. So what I want you to do, I want you to press that share button and you get a link. And when you get that link, I want you to send it to at least 2 friends, right? So I want you to share this episode with at least 2 of your friends. Let's get the word out there about this show. And finally, Hot Topics has a text blast. I encourage you to get on it. You will learn about anything and everything that has to do with Hot Topics. You'll learn about live episodes, the audio releases, anything and everything to do with Hot Topics. I encourage you to get on that text blast. All you have to do is text the code Hot Topics to 917-764-3975. Again, just text the code Hot Topics to 917-764-3975. Those are for if you're in the US or Canada. If you are outside of those countries, send us an email and let us know that you want to get on the blast. That email, once again, is success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. All right, you guys, and that is it for the episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please join us at the next episode. Thank you again, you guys. Bye.